In this chapter, we're going to look at how to use XML data from a URL to run a desktop application. The XML data we're going to use is the same data that we created in the previous chapter. So for this, you're going to need two projects in your Project Explorer. First, the final version of the app created in the last chapter. And here you'll see data.jsp. Note that the project name is JSP_final. And if you test this with the built-in Eclipse web browser, you'll see a URL in the web browser area. You can copy that URL now because we're going to use it in just a second. So I'll close those two files, and the main files we're going to be working with for this are in the Loading XML project, and I put them inside the com.toddperkins.uar package. So I'm going to double-click the tab for appmain.java to expand the area. AppMain is the main class. Here, I create a new instance of the view class and run some methods. Explain the default close operation, which is a method of JFrame. We'll look at that in just a minute. Set the size of the window and set it to be visible. So the view is the main visible class for our project. Let's go over to view.java. So here I have declared that it's part of the com.toddperkins.uar package. And then I have a list of import statements. The class extends JFrame, which is part of the Swing framework, and it implements Action Listener. Keep in mind that we'll be talking more about the Swing framework later on in this chapter. Here I have some initialized properties, array list to hold values from the XML, and some various Swing framework objects that I'm mostly creating here, and later on we'll look at how to actually use them in an app. In the constructor, I call super and pass in backpack CA, which sets the title area for the window that we're looking at. And I call set layout to a new flow layout. What that does is it sets the class to present added visual elements vertically. And then I run the custom method load data, passing in the URL copied from the Eclipse web browser when I looked at that XML data. So then I have public void action performed. This is so that we can fulfill the requirements of Action Listener. And I have load data. And I have a utility method called getTagValue that returns the value inside an XML tag. Let's return to load data. Now I actually have this code already written because if you watched a Java Essential training, then you've already experienced loading data from a URL. So here we're just going to review. Note that we're loading the document in a try-catch block. So we create a new document builder factory, then a new document builder. Then we have the document builder parse the URL and save it in that document object. Then we normalize it to condense the XML data. Then I have a node list called nodes, and that grabs all the elements by a tag name, which is tour. And then I can simply loop through all the tags using the iterator called I. So I have a node that we set as nodes.itemIndexI. And we check to see if the node type is an element node. And if so, I grab the element as an element. So I'm typecasting it here. And then I put these elements inside of the array list. So titles.add, descriptions.add, etc. We pass in getTagValue. That's our custom method that returns the value of a tag. So we pass in the string, which is the name of the tag, and then the element. In the case of the link, I made sure to remove any extra white space because links won't work if there's extra white space. So I'm using a regular expression here to grab all the space characters and replace all of them with nothing. And that's only for links. Now, if you want to log this to the console, just to make sure that we're able to read the XML data okay, you can type system.out, don't forget to capitalize the S, .println, and in the parentheses we'll pass in getTagValue, and in the parentheses for getTagValue we'll pass in first the string tour title, capital T for title, and then a comma, and then E for the element. So let's save and test this, and we should see all the tour titles in the console. So test the app, And we now have a blank view for the app, but there's the window with Backpack CA at the top. I'll close that. And if I look in the console, I can see all of the names on different lines. So I've successfully extracted the XML data. We're using it as XML, and the data is coming from a URL. And the last thing I'm going to do is just delete that line of code at the bottom, system.out.println line. But we've seen that we can actually read XML data from a URL, and we'll look at throughout this chapter how to use that data in a desktop application.